But you told me before we did this that you might have some inside information on actually, a potential bid or a potential new owner that we haven't heard a lot about in the press because it's all been Nick Candy and whoever he's got behind him. It's been Bowley, hasn't it? And
Yeah.
one or two others. But this, I didn't realize that the guys you're talking about might be interested.
Yeah. So the Ricketts family, who made their fortune through TD Ameritrade, it's been suggested in the press that in the last couple of days that their bid is one of the more serious ones. So the Ricketts, obviously, they are the owner of the Chicago Cubs. Chicago Cubs play at Wrigley. Our bar, Greystone, is a 4-minute walk. I'm a Cubs season ticket holder. My family's been Cubs fans our entire lives. The Ricketts, I want to just kind of provide some information on them. Tom Ricketts is the head basically of the family and really the chieftain in charge of the Cubs. He's a longtime fan. He grew up in the neighborhoods where I live, had been going to the Cubs since a young boy. They purchased the team back in 2009. And what they had to deal with were, a team that hadn't won a lot in a long time. But I think the big parallel is the redevelopment of Wrigley Field. So Wrigley Field was built in about 1912. When they purchased it in 2009, many elements of it were not up to modern standards. It was falling apart. I mean, you could sit in the lower tier and there would be concrete pieces from the top tier falling on you. So they had to go and put in nets underneath to catch this and make sure that it was, basically that it wasn't falling on fans. If I could picture this for people on your side of the pond, think of like the worst championship in League One grounds that you went to and kind of some of those horrid facilities that you've had to deal with. And in a lot of ways, that was Wrigley. Seats 40,000 people. It's historic in its location. To move the Cubs somewhere else would have been a huge outcry. And, frankly, that probably would have generated protests too. So they came in and they spent heavily, not only on the team and players, but they've redeveloped the entire area. They kept the shell of Wrigley Field. They basically stripped everything that was inside and rebuilt it from scratch and brought it up to a modern standard. Unfortunately, that did allow for advertising. There's a much larger increased commercial presence these days, but it translated to spending money on players on the field. And in 2016, the Cubs won the World Series for the first time in 108 years. My concern about
Are they
this is
Tottenham in
that,
disguise?
yeah, basically, I mean, and nowhere near. Getting nowhere near that. They haven't even played for the title since 1945 before that. So I think the real concern here is you hear all this and you're like, well, why wouldn't that be a good thing? And it's because since, basically I think they're trying to make their money back on spending, close to $1 billion on redeveloping Wrigley Field, building the hotels and all the bars and restaurants next door. They've been spending less on the team. The team has been underperforming. There's been a very public battle with the fans over the TV network. So the way that it works over here is that Cubs games were on over the air, and some of them were then on a cable package that was part of Xfinity and NBC. And the Cubs decided that we're going to open our own television network and we're going to charge you separately, and all Cubs games, 162 a season, will be on a network that we will control, and we will generate more revenue and profit to use on the team from this. The issue was they rolled this out and that network was not available to everyone because of the rights fees for like Xfinity to carry it. For instance, Xfinity is the largest market here in Chicago. So half the season went by and people couldn't watch Cubs games. So, picture it being on at your 3:00 kickoff and you can't watch any match for half a season. And so there's been a very public battle with the fans about that. They definitely have lost the trust. And I just think that for the Ricketts to come in, I see a scenario where every dollar spent on the Cubs is a pound less spent on Chelsea. I don't think they'll accept losing money. I have a definite conflict of interest. I don't want those two worlds to be colliding. And I'm really worried about how they're going to come in and look at the development of the stadium, how they're going to treat the fans. I don't think they have a clue about supporter culture. I think if you showed them videos of the Super League protests from last season, they're going to go wide-eyed and be like, what the hell are we getting ourselves into? Because we don't have that kind of passion and action here over something, that threatens the game and what we care about. So, a very long-winded answer there, but I also think just, with the Ricketts, it applies to some other American owners that they just don't understand the business models and the culture and the passion that drives a lot of this. That makes me worry about the investment into the team, potentially uprooting us to Wembley for 3 or more years to redevelop. If, they accept the arrangement with the CPO at all, and just want to look at another site. So there's a lot of questions there. And, I have a lot of negative feelings about them being rumored for a bid.
Brian, it's so nice to hear an American saying this, because it saves me having to say it and then me being accused of being a racist. So, it's lovely to hear you say that, because I've been saying the same. I get it out there. And there it's such a completely different culture. It'll always be driven on very cold, hard business principles. And my main argument against having an American owner is that, these guys work on a franchise model. It's a franchise. It's not about the community the club was born in. I actually, you probably don't know this, but I'm actually quite fond. I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm a fan, because I don't go there, so I think that disqualifies me. But I'm quite fond of the LA Dodgers, because I went to LA and I went to see a game out there, and and I've even got the hat and the T-shirt to prove it. But I got kind of interested in their, me being me, you can understand this. It wasn't good enough to just go to the game. I had to find out about them, and I found out all this stuff. They were called the Brooklyn Dodgers because they were from Brooklyn, and it was all about the trams and people dodging the trams and all of that. And I'm thinking, well, why the fuck are they in LA then? And there we go, QED. That's what happens in the States. That's the mentality of the kind of owners that we're talking about.
To kind of cement this home for everyone listening, not from America, the big difference is that these franchises, there's no threat of relegation. Their monies, their TV money is guaranteed every single year if they're the best team or the worst team in the league. They're not ever going to be relegated. There's no threat to their standing. If they expand the league, then an ownership group is basically going to have to pay $1 billion or more to come in and open up a franchise that would dilute those dollars a little bit until the next TV deal is even more money. So I don't think that they understand that when you come in, you can't sit on your heels. You kind of can't hope for overperformance year to year. You need to spend, because spending brings at least some guarantee that you'll be close to securing revenues. And we know that, the difference between fourth and fifth in England can be something like, 50 million pounds, if not more now with the new TV deals. So that does not exist here. We don't have that disparity in the numbers. And I really worry that the owners just, their lawyers, their consultants can tell them till they're blue in the face. Until they've lived it, I don't think that they understand what that actually means.